be, I don't know how many paychecks it would take to equal that. Um, you know, that's that's what work really should be. It's hard, but it's got a reward that nobody can take that from you. Isaac, how about you? The first time you saw that, the way you described it, since you were the one talking about it, what was going through your mind at the time?
Right. Yeah. I had a bit of a hunch that it was going to work kind of the way I described it and the way Fiona describes it. Just having seen my grandmother light up or I guess the first time I saw an old person with a stuffed animal was my grandfather. He had, one of his nurses got him like a little dog. And he, would hold it and kind of comfort it, but it wasn't quite the feedback that we have. And then my grandmother on my mom's side, she grew up speaking Swedish and spoke it most of her life, and in Sweden and even for U.S. Swedes, like Christmas time is just absolutely very, very important for culture. So Swedish Christmas songs will always resonate with someone who's ever heard them. So there was one time where my mom found a cassette tape of, I forget if it was like the children's choir or something from their church, and put it in a cassette player and played it for my grandmother when she was probably 90 or 91 at that point. And she just completely lit up with this experience, kind of recalling these older memories that she had, and started singing along the best she could, and saw this complete transformation in what she was feeling that day. So I kind of had an idea of what an animal like a Therapal would do to someone, and it kind of is along that line of having people probably recall some old memories of having pets and being comforted by that. And like Fiona said, I mean, it's so rewarding having your work have that effect on someone, and it just kind of keeps you going, because every day you're like, man, who do I get to make smile the next time we go demo?
And what you said right there, a lot of the people I've been fortunate to start working with, as I've been doing the show here, have come back to a pretty common phrase, which is, you need to start seeing the things that you do, that you choose to do, as I get to do fill in the blank, not just I have to. And there's enough have tos out there. I mean, you can't make everything a joy that you have to do in your day. There's plenty of things none of us want to do. But in particular, the job. Does it seem like a job to you?
Sometimes just like running any business, there's parts of it that aren't glamorous or aren't fun, and like I don't like going through and looking at like our budget stuff and having to do that, because it's not hands-on with some of our users, but you got to do it. So in that sense, it does feel like a job sometimes. And then on the complete flip side, you're sometimes, I don't know, figuring out new people who can use your animals, or soldering something or designing something new, and that's the part that doesn't feel like a job.
How about you, Fiona?
I think that I've been working on it, for so long, even just in the beginning, in the early stages when it was a side project, that I've never looked at it like a job. And I find it funny because Isaac came on at a time when we were trying to transition to, from a project to a startup. And I really struggled a lot with that transition. And I know Isaac has been great in taking on more of the businessy aspects. So I feel that I still get to enjoy it as more of it doesn't feel like it's something that I have to do or that I'm obligated to do. It's something that I really get a lot of enjoyment out of.
And that idea and that was how I was raised, which was, you work hard, but there's no need to be slaving away at anything, which doesn't mean you're kicking your feet up. It just means you don't feel like, the task at hand owns you. Is that something that this project brought out in you, or was that part of just your family life and your culture?
Yeah, I would Um, I would say that my parents have always been extremely supportive and trying new things. And I actually, my dad is an engineer and my mom is a nurse. And so they were extremely, supportive from the get-go. And yeah, I think that this project has only worked, or the startup has worked to reinforce that. Yes.
How about you, Isaac?
Yeah, my parents never really had to push me too much to do anything, except maybe clean my room or chores or something like that. But when it came to like professional activities and academics and sports and clubs and all that stuff, I kind of just found my own way there. So TheraPals kind of falls into that category where I thought it was really cool and I'm going to do it. They both have creative backgrounds. My mom has like a master's degree in art and is an art teacher. My dad's a videographer. So they didn't have, clear-cut guidelines or goals for what they wanted me to do in a professional sense. So I kind of got to have a lot of freedom there with exploring what I could do, in college, post-college, really all over the place. So yeah, I haven't had, or they've been completely supportive along the way because they think it's really cool, and they love to talk about it with their friends and the rest of my family about what I'm working on, and they're great.
And I think that's important, that whatever you're trying to do, you'll only be successful relative to the amount of support you get. And some people will say, oh, you mean like, paying for tutors, paying for schools, like, well, that may be needed, but I think it's more of just, early, you ended up by talking about, oh, well, my parents were always supportive and creative and whatnot, but you started with, no, it just kind of happened on its own. And as a parent now with my daughter's in her sophomore year of college, my oldest, I'm beginning to remember now all the things I didn't think my parents were doing for me, but they were doing it literally in the background noise, often by not doing anything, by just letting me do what I needed to do. And I think that's really important. And I'm sure you've thanked your parents enough, but I'm turning the corner, on 50 here and realizing that aside from always saying, yeah, I'm sorry for all the mistakes that and all the things I did as a teenager, but I realize how much it did for me by choosing not to jump in, and hijack whatever path I was on. So I do want to get into now a little bit about, you mentioned with, you turned a corner. You said first it was from a project to a bit of an enterprise, and you found someone who had those talents, but more importantly, the same drive for the goal, not just the drive for business. What was it iVenture? What is the mechanism at the collegiate level that made this happen? Because this isn't common. It may seem like it to you all because you're in that type of environment, but the world needs more small businesses, and they need to be, not just, in my opinion, venture capitalists. It needs to be people like yourselves that'll be your first job is the one you create. How did this? What brought this together after the project? What was the incubator?
Yeah. So in the spring, I had done the COZED New Venture competition on campus. And at that point, I had 2 super seniors on the team, and I had Isaac helping me out with coming up with the business model. And we were lucky enough to be awarded admittance into U of I's accelerator. So it's the iVenture Accelerator, and it's essentially $10,000 in seed funding and a $2,500 stipend to just stay over the summer and immerse yourself in what you're doing, and then also learn alongside a cohort. So we had about 12 teams, I believe, that were working in the same space with us, and they brought in mentors, and we had trips up to Chicago, and it was really my first type of exposure to, I guess I didn't realize that you could work for yourself until like this past summer. So all of my family members, no one had started, their own business. So it was just like something totally new and foreign to me, and to be able to learn in that type of setting where, you have teams that are further along in the process than you. And so there was just this great sense of camaraderie and like helping each other out and to move forward with, your common goals.
And the program's now in its third year. We're up to 36 teams who have been through the summer in iVenture. It's over, I think, 100 students now at this point. And then we're starting to take applications for our fourth cohort too. But we've had ventures from that program go on to raise millions of dollars already. And there's a pretty bright future right now for entrepreneurship on campus, because the university's doing a lot, and we're re-engaging with a lot of alums who now have a really good outlet if they started their own business to finally give back to the university.
Yeah, and that is one of the things that when I think back to what I got out of my college experience, I also had co-ops, so it did help me really, without having to start my own company. I was able to see what it was like to work and really start kind of moving that flashlight around as I was searching for what type of engineer I wanted to be. That helped a lot. But it was the projects. And, for 25 years now, going back to my time, but I know went on for 5 or 10 years before that, it's such a huge part of getting you, and me at the time, the student out of the head, the books and everything, and start really doing something. What's been some of the, let's just talk about that program and all those people you talk about. Are there friendships or stories or anything like that that has really been something that has made college more than studying to be able to get a regular paycheck?
Yeah, I think it's been so inspiring, especially now, and seeing where, just the kind of the evolution of people that we've known, like going through the program, and how there's like a certain sense of validation that comes with it, and people just like diving in head first. So there are like a couple startups who now, like after they graduated, like are based in Chicago, based in California, continuing to work on their ventures. And to think where they were a year ago, it just like blows my mind. And just like also to have like access to those people. So just like, any questions that you have or things that you're struggling with, you have a group of, supportive individuals who will answer you right away. And it's been wonderful.
Has it been more competitive or more, truly collaborative?
Oh, I think it's definitely been more collaborative. So typically the way that the program is structured, you would have boardroom presentations where you would kind of go through current updates, but then also have like asks at the end of your presentation. So specific needs or problems that you're running into and issues within your venture, and you have a group of like 40 people that are throwing ideas at you, connections and contacts. Some of the best contacts that we have now have been made through iVenture. And just through our peers. Yeah.
I'm sorry to step over. I was just thinking, Isaac, from your perspective, have you ever sat there and, with a big grin said, oh, wow, that idea somebody else has, that is so cool, and almost forgot about your own project?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, that's the beauty of when Fiona was talking about those boardroom presentations, is being in an environment where we're not competing against each other at all, and when it comes to strategy or anything like that, and we're all in a very safe environment when it comes to sharing very sensitive information about business or ops or strategy. yeah, you do get to just absolutely just